Hi, welcome to the Small Shed. Today I'm talking about mistakes. See you in a minute. Now, I've often said that the man that never makes a mistake never makes anything, and to some extent I think that's true. Mistakes aren't something to be afraid of or to admit that you've made, I think. And on this bus bunk bed I've made several. Now, this isn't really a bus bunk bed video. It's about just generally how you get out of some of the problems when you've made a mistake. I've got 2 or 3 of these coming up over the next few weeks, on and off, showing how I've got out of problems that I've created for myself. It's often said that the difference between an amateur and a professional is that the professional can hide their mistakes, and I think that's also true to some extent. They probably make less, but they also know how to get out of a problem if they get one. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that I'm anyway a professional or know exactly what I'm doing, but it's just showing that in many ways you can often get out of a problem by just cobbling it together and sucking it and see and having a go rather than starting all over again. So we're going to start off today with the front of the bus bunk, the upper part. I'd foolishly left it propped up on the end of the bus, and I went down the far end and was doing something else, and I don't know whether I bashed it with a hammer or whether I pushed a piece of timber or what. All I know is that the front fell off, and I didn't think anything about it at the time. I picked it up and put it back, lodged it back, and it was only the next morning when I went down and I realised that when it had fallen it had hit the handle on the conservatory door and caused quite a bit of bad damage to it. So this is the state of the thing, and let's see if we can't put it back together or mend it in some way, shape or form. Now, ordinarily it wouldn't have mattered. That was the last but one piece I cut, and then I damaged it without realising it and went on to cut the very last piece. And this is the last piece of timber that I've got left out of the sheet. Now, that would have done me if it had been left intact. I could have made a new top. Right, so this is the problem. I've got 2 options, I think, to be able to sort this out. The second one is more destructive than the first and is probably something I will save for later. Because I haven't got a new piece to make another one from, this was always going to have a 6mm backer to take the lettering and numbering on it. So the first option is to try and get some glue into all of these joints, straighten it out and clamp it, and I've got some baking type material sheet underneath so that the glue won't stick it to the bench. So I can clamp it down to the bench, hopefully, and get that bend out of it, pull it back square and straight, and hope that will do it with filler and God knows what else, and then we can get the backing piece on it to hold it all together. If that fails, or if it becomes a catastrophic sort of disaster, I can then probably just cut out along the lines of the routed sort of body moulding joint lines. I don't want to take this whole piece out at the bottom because it'll leave this top piece not very well supported, and that's at the end of the head of the bed effectively. But we're going to try first of all to get some glue into some of these joints, pull it straight, pull it flat, and see what we can do. So I'll get some clamps out first, I think, and see where we go from there. Most of the armoury of clamps, I think, for today. I was going to drop super glue into it, but I'm not sure that will help because I think it'll go off too quickly. I need quite a bit of time to get this lot all sorted. So I'm going to try and squeeze in some Titebond
and literally just squeeze it in wherever I can, and then if necessary, if I can squeeze a bit of or drop a bit of super glue on afterwards, I will try. So first of all, let's get it squashed flat down to the deck. Cut some of this off as well. Use. Just like a baking sheet. I hope will mean it doesn't stick to it. Those two together somehow. Let's try these. That's just going to bend the timber, I think. Oh no, it's going. I'm not sure how well it's going. Maybe a bench dog. Yeah, that'll do me. Perhaps just work across there on the joint. Right, let's get a straight edge on that and find out how far out it is. Shed. Right, that is now straight. That's now squashed down. So all we can do is wait for that to dry and see if Titebond 3 is as good as everybody reckons it is. And then we can clean up if it's slightly out. There are ways around it even further. I mean, as I said, if I have to cut the whole thing out, I'll cut the whole thing out. But if this is still slightly bowed, there's nothing to stop me taking a rip right the way across the bottom, and just, because it'll be 1 or 2 millimeters, and just finessing the bottom panel up a little bit. It won't show anywhere. And then I could just straighten out that bottom rail with a router if I had to on the inside of it, but I'm hoping that will be somewhere near right, but we'll let it set and see. I don't know what Titebond reckon, but I'm going to leave it 24 hours. Yeah, they reckon you can clamp for 30 minutes minimum. Longer is better, but don't stress the joint for 24 hours, so 24 hours it is. Right, so 24 hours on. Let's have a look and see if we've actually managed to achieve anything with this. Whether or not the paper is not stuck, which it hasn't, which is good. And whether or not the join that we've achieved and the straightening that we've achieved has actually made it something that we can carry on using. Well, first impressions are it's pretty good. It's certainly rigid, it's certainly solid. I'll know better when I can get a sander on it. I suppose the critical thing is how straight is it. So we'll have a quick look at that. Well, if I was picky, I'd say there's 0.5 millimetre in that section there. But that is really about it. And it is flat in that plane as well. So I think we've probably achieved what we wanted to with that. What I'm going to do now is just get a sander on it and just get the surplus glue off, and any bits that are joins, just run it over them and see if we can get it uniform and judge better. But I think we've got there without any massive distress. So there we are. I think that's been successful. I think we've got away with it. If I'm really picky, I think it's possible there may be the very slightest bit of a fill to do on that join there. There's just a very slight depression that'll come out when I put a coat of primer on it, sealer. But I think by and large that's worked okay. Same on the back, although that doesn't matter because the back is going to be have a backing piece on it anyway to put the lettering and numbering for the bus routes. So on the whole, I think we've managed to salvage what would have been an expensive panel to replace, because it would have been a new sheet of MDF, which with delivery would probably be the best part of 60 odd quid. So I'm happy with that. So that's it in its finished position, and as you can see there's minimal filling needed in that, so it's pretty much all ready to paint now, and I think we've got away with it.
Well, I hope that was of interest. It's a bit specific to MDF, but similar results can be obtained with anything else, particularly if you're only using a painted finish. Some of the small, like the little Ronseal pot of filler I've got, covers a multitude of sins once you've actually got the thing back to a sort of a decent flat level shape that you started with in the first place. Hope it was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week. We'll probably be back on the bus bunk because I think I'm up to week 10 at the moment on it, and I haven't got anything else, but we'll have hopefully made a bit more progress. Look forward to seeing you then, and we'll see you next week. Bye.